You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog Show. I am your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. We have an incredible co-host and a very special guest, a good friend of mine. So I'm really looking forward to this show. Let me bring out my co-host, Ben Chai, the Doctor Who of business.
Hey!
Hello. Hey!
Hey, Dr. J.
Hey. We like our hays. How are you today?
Yays, they're hays today.
That's right. That's
Things
right.
are a bit hazy, so they're haze.
And by the way, I like the new hairdo, new haircuts, looking very smart.
After 3 months, I was able to get out of UK lockdown. We're still in semi-lockdown, but I was able to get a haircut. So.
Well, I think it looks very smart, very nice. So, Doctor Who, before we begin, if you could just tell our audience a little bit about you, and also, why are we doing this show, The Underdog?
Yes, so a little bit about myself. I had a childhood that I probably wouldn't want to kind of have anyone else go through. But as a result of that, and the lessons I learned as a result of that childhood, it helped me to be successful in a lot of different areas of my life. So whether I wanted to be on stage or be an author or run a business. And what we're doing with this show is sharing other people's lives on the challenges they faced and what they went through and the lessons they learned, so that some of you who are going through difficult or challenging times, that you know that there's hope at the end of the tunnel, the light, and maybe even learn a few little techniques and tricks that might help you get to the end of the tunnel faster. So that's what this show is about. And we've got this amazing lady who probably had a difficult childhood as well and went through a time in corporate America where they wanted her to fail. So she's going to be sharing what happened to her and how she got out of it, and how she reached that place of abundance and peace today.
Fantastic. Thank you for that intro. I just want to let our audience know that I met Megan Sandwick through Lunch Club, which I'm not a paid sponsor. I keep saying that. I keep waiting for the money to come, but it's not coming. So I'm not a paid sponsor, but I met her through there, and she is an incredible expert when it comes to productivity and coming up with processes to help streamline what it is that you're doing. So I just want to say, in addition to hearing her story, I highly recommend her as a professional. We'll ask her to give her contact information because I want her phone ringing off the hook. I want everybody emailing her, contacting her for productivity tips and tricks. So with that being said, should we bring her onto the show?
Yeah.
Megan.
Megan.
Hello. It's so good to see you both today.
It's good to see
Tell
you.
us about your map and a little bit of your journey.
So my map, I actually 7 years ago when I was fired from corporate America, wish it would have happened a little different way, but unfortunately it needed to be fired. But I moved to the remote world. And so once I started working with the remote world, I started working with people all over the world. And so I was super interested in where are you? Because I would always say, okay, I know where I'm at. And so it gave me a chance to just really connect and see where the rest of the world is, and gave me a chance to see that we're all interdependent and we are all connected. And so it's a great reminder to have with the map behind me.
That's great. Dr. J, you know a little bit more about Megan here. Did you want to ask her a few questions yourself?
Yes, I definitely do, because we have a meeting every week, and I don't know how long we've been meeting, but we've gotten to know each other. And once again, it's one of those things where we haven't met in person, but I feel like I already know you. So I hope that you feel the same.
I do. And by the end of this year, so we're going to be on the East Coast and we'll be able to see each other in person. That will be a delight. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Good for you.
So we talk a lot on this show, and another one that I have, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, Overcoming Adversity, about having been in the corporate world, and then something happens either by choice or not by choice, and then we're out of that world and we're working on our own. So you're doing amazing things with your business. Can you share a little bit about how that transition, you talked about, you know, you were at that job and now you're not. So how was that transition emotionally for you from leaving there to doing what you're doing now?
That's a really good question.
Are we going to do this back in time? So we're going to take Megan here and then back and then back.
Yes.
And then, oh, I'm totally gone.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
We've never done a backward in time version. Let's do this.
So for me, I think, and it's interesting, I recently had a birthday. And so I've been looking, and it was a 0 birthday. I turned 50, I'm happy to say. I turned 50 and I am in the best place in my life that I've ever been. I'm in the best place physically, emotionally, financially, and just knowing where I'm going. And I will say that if we look back 10 years ago to when I was 40, it was a very different situation. And so 10 years ago when I was 40 is when I was starting this job. So what happened is I moved to San Diego to be a to be a project manager for a contract. And so it was working with a private company that contracted with San Diego Social Services. And I was running a welfare to work office. And so I would say at that point, I was not who I am today. And so one of the things we talk about a lot about is responsiveness. If I look back to where I was when I turned 40 or 10 years ago, I was not in a good place physically. I was not in a good place mentally. I lived in a hotel. I didn't even have like a regular home. So what I would say is the last 10 years and being in that job, what I had done is I had kind of given up everything of Megan. I was giving to everything else, but I wasn't giving to me. And so I wasn't taking care of myself. And so for me, it seemed as if the only way I could survive in life was to bury myself into this job. I moved to San Diego. I buried up myself into a job. I would have, my living situation I didn't care about because basically I worked from 6 in the morning until 8 or 9 at night. And so what I did over that last 4 years is I was in a job where unfortunately I wasn't with people who wanted me to succeed. I wasn't with people who supported me. And so I walked into a situation where I really was the underdog. And there was this goal of, let's see if we can help her fail. I'd been brought in by a vice president and the people in the local office didn't necessarily want me to be there. And for me, what I know, and it's kind of, there was a period of my life when I lost myself. And again, like I said, I wasn't taking care of me. And that was when I was in the middle of it. And I realized that and my thought was, I'm just going to give and give and give and put myself in this situation. And so I did. So the job was challenging.
Megan,
yes.
can we just go back to, because what I want our audience to understand is what some of the generalizations you meant. So when you say you weren't in a good space physically, what does that mean, or when you weren't in a good space mentally, what does that actually mean?
Good question. So physically, I from the years of like 2005 to 2009, I had 7 ankle surgeries. So I had an ankle injury that I was living in Santa Barbara at the time. I was working in an 8 to 5 job and my ankle started bothering me. And I had over a period of about 3.5, 4 years, I had 7 surgeries, and they took bone from my hip. And so in that case, like my ankle became my life in a very different way because everything was around what I was doing. Was around healing from it. And so what I then did is I had my last surgery. I was on a path to wellness, and then my ankle doctor died. And so at that point, I just didn't have a clear path, and I wasn't sure what I needed to do with my ankle. And so I figured, okay, I'm just going to go on with the rest of my life. And it's okay if I'm diminished because I'm in pain all the time, or I can't walk, or I can't do things. I just thought that's just the life that I have. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to dive into work, and I'm going to work all the time. And so I tried to make this job happen that I moved to San Diego for. And so my body was...
So let me just go back a second. So because of the surgery you had on your ankle, and because you couldn't continue with it with the doctor that you were used to, you were in constant pain. Did you have crutches or anything like that? Or, what was going on with that leg?
Yes. So I was in crutches. I was on and off crutches for about 3.5 years. And I had a walking boot that I wore for about 8 years or 9 years. And I had a brace that I wore for about 12 years. And so my life, I was in pain every day. But what I did, instead of taking care of myself, I just adapted and said, I'm just going to live in pain. That's okay. I'm just going to live like this. I'm just going to modify my life and modify my expectations, because I thought that was all that I could have at that point.
Right. So you just accepted the pain, and you just thought, look, I'm going to have this pain for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 100 years. I'm just going to suck it and just get on. And maybe one way I can dull the pain is to, apart from the painkillers, is to try and lose myself in a job. Right. Mm-hmm. So can you also help me understand when you say like your mental health? So I'm getting that you were in pain. And so there's probably I'm guessing you're probably a bit grumpy with people, because you're also kind of trying to deal with that pain, but they don't necessarily see that pain. So they might think, Megan, she's just a horrible woman, but actually they can't see behind the scenes. So help me understand, apart from the grumpiness, what else was going on in your head? Was there kind of like a sadness or a depression, or like
anger?
Anger.
Anger.
My self-worth. I will be honest and say that I would say from probably the time I was about 35 until late 40s, I also had a very low self-worth. I didn't have necessarily a clear path of what was for me. I was doing things for everybody else, and I just threw myself into that world. So it was like, okay, so if I can throw everything to work and work all these hours, then I thought I had a fulfilled life, because I was quote unquote busy on the outside, but I was miserable on the inside. And so that's absolutely, the more that I poured into everything else, the less there was of me, the more cranky I became. I also forgot why I was doing what I was doing, because I loved my job. I loved what I was doing. I was helping people on public assistance become self-sufficient, which is who I am. But I realized that in 2020, after 2010, it wasn't possible to do the job I wanted the way I wanted. And so I was miserable doing it this other way. And that's where...
It sounds like you, apart from the anger and those emotions that were going on, that you were trying to get self-worth by giving to the job, so that people will see how hard you're working and they'll think Megan's a very valuable person. So you were trying to get external validation rather than what you shared a bit earlier, rather than having self-worth and working on you. This is what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, and I have a comment on that. I think people throw themselves into other things to take their mind off what is really going on with them. So if you're busy in your work, you're not going to focus on what's really your pain that's going on. And then I think also there's some kind of resentment that forms up, because I know I have a chronic illness, and you get resentful and angry. So back to you, Megan.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing that because people didn't see what you were doing and how you were helping them, there's that kind of that growing, like, what don't they see? Can you explain to me why they employed you to fail?
Yeah. So what happened is there was a contract extension. So there had been an existing contract that was in San Diego County, and it blew up. It was growing like 5 times. And so they needed to bring people in who knew how to implement contracts, knew implement services, and knew the curriculum for job search. And so the person that brought me in was the vice president for the contract. She wasn't part of the contract. And I didn't realize there was a little resentment there between the people in contract and the vice president, because I was hearing it all from the vice president's view. So to me, everything was going to be great. I was going to come in and I was going to do a great job. Well, what happened was I came in and I pretty quickly realized that they didn't want me to succeed. But actually, that was a small blessing for me because they didn't want me to succeed. So the way they did that was they were like, okay, we're going to give Megan people that we don't think are going to work well. They gave me supervisors that hated each other. Like they gave me all these things that they thought would not work. But the thing was, I already knew the vision and I knew how to set up a successful welfare to work program. I've been doing that for years. And I'd worked with thousands of participants. And so the difference was the people who employed me, they were shady and they didn't do things honestly. And I came in and I knew how you set up a program to actually work. We know shady people, that works for a little while, but we know that the honest approach is going to be the long-term approach. So while the first few months, my office wasn't succeeding, over the next 16 months, I unrailed it. And so what happened is they kind of left me alone. They were like, let her figure it out. And I was like, okay, let me figure it out. You're right. Let me do it my way. And so that actually worked really well.
Yeah.
Kind of background.
So we'll come back to to that part of the journey. Dr. J, got a hand up.
Yes, because we have to take a break and hear from some of our sponsors.
Oh,
yes.
Man, we're so getting into this.
I know. We have to hear from our sponsors. So we'll be right back. Stay with us here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog Show.
The world is changing, and your company needs to change with it. Whether it's procurement, employment, marketing, or customer service, it's now more important than ever for your business processes to be inclusive to people with disabilities. Hi, I'm Trish Robichaud with Changing Paces, and I'm here to tell you that making your business processes accessible to people with disabilities is simply good for business. Accessibility and inclusion are the law. But here's what you may not realize. Disability inclusion is an opportunity, not an obstacle. In fact, a recent 4-year study found that companies that fully embrace disability inclusion had a 30% higher profit margin than those that didn't. Your investment in staff disability inclusiveness training can pay off in areas like innovation, brand recognition, as well as customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty, not to mention productivity and profitability. At Changing Paces, we can help you make that happen for your business. Our experts have real-life experience that will help your team gain insight and best practices they won't get anywhere else. And we can help you create a customized training program to bring your organization into compliance with local and industry regulations. This topic is very close to my heart for me, very personal. Dealing with the challenges of MS for the past 25 plus years and having lost my job as a result of my diagnosis back then, I've made it my mission to bring disability out of the darkness and create a more welcoming environment for people of all abilities. As a pioneer in the field of inclusiveness, our company developed and implemented one of the first accessible customer service training programs in Canada. We provide complete online training solutions that blend with your branding, your policies, and your systems. Between our disability subject matter experts and our technical partners, we can provide you with both the content and the platform that you need to create an evergreen training program that empowers your people while it transforms your organization and your company culture. In short, we make disability inclusion easy in all parts of your business. Contact us now for a quote or consultation at info@changingpaces.com. Your bottom line will thank you.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Caruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show. I'm glad even the other stations are tuned into.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog show starring Ben Chai and our guest, Megan Sandwick. I want to say hello to Fraser, Olga, Malika, Fortune, and Jane. All right, Doctor Who, over to you.
Yeah, so there you go. You're the scapegoat, Megan. The company's employed, so they want to blame everything on you. So that when things are uncovered, it's all going to be Megan's fault. That's what I'm guessing it was happening in the kind of corporate heads there. Would that be right?
And they just personally wanted me to fail. They just wanted me to fail and be gone. So you know what I'm saying? So it was like there was an attempt to, we'll make sure her office doesn't succeed. Oh, and then we'll write her up for these random bogus things that didn't happen. And so it was really kind of an attack on me personally. And then the interesting thing is because there was a project director and HR person who were doing this, and the HR person actually was arrested. So it was one of the
Arrested.
Wow. Because I remember going through a similar issue where the director, so I was a senior executive at Kodak, and my director had changed. And he wanted to become CEO at the expense of the other directors. And because I didn't want to play his underhand games to do stuff, I had to go. So there was all sorts of things that he would do to try and get me fired, and actually created a constructive dismissal scenario that I went through. So I'm kind of guessing that's what it was like for you. Would that be correct? How did you actually feel when you realized that this is, bearing in mind you've got all these other issues going on?
Mm-hmm. You know, I turned into fear factor, unfortunately. And that's what I'm talking about this last 10 years of being this roller coaster. I turned into fear factor. And my biggest fear at the point was, oh my gosh, if I lose my job, what's going to happen? And so I was clinging on to it so tight. And so there was a period where the HR director left, and so the project director left, and the new people came in. And so there was a period where things were going well, and it was like they gave me all this additional responsibility because again, to me, the worst thing that could have happened was, oh my gosh, if I lose my job and this income, who am I going to be? What am I going to do? And so that feeling lasted for several years. And I just said yes to everything and just lived in fear constantly. And it was a horrible feeling. And it impacted my self-belief. It impacted me physically, emotionally, and mentally. I was a pretty drained and broken person by the end of that experience.
Right. And I kind of get that. For me, I was ducking and diving and like trying to every time, and he'd throw something at me, and I'd turn it around somehow until I had to get in front of that HR director who accused me of some things. And I said, well, I have an entire team that's going to walk out if this, what you're saying, occurs. And eventually they said, if we pay you this amount, will you go quietly? And of course I said, yeah, sure, why not? But it sounds like you actually fought it out. So tell me how, so there you are in that fear, kind of like, you know, plus you're in pain, plus you've got your foot problem, plus you probably think the world hates you.
Wow, and I hated myself. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was even worse. How did you get away from like, hey, look, if I lose this job, it's no big deal. It's not as if things haven't happened to me in the past. How did you take us through that bit now? That kind of, here you are, the underdog. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You found your cape. You found your cape. Da, 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 da.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Batman. Yeah, that's
Well, and the funny thing is, so the great thing is, when I worked there, I worked with some great people. I had some great team members, people above me, and there were some shady people, but I did have some really good people, and that was what kept me going through. But then what the secret was, and what changed my life, was actually starting to do yoga. And so I, at the time, was living in what I called the group home. I was renting a room from a woman, and there were 3 of us that were living in this house. And she did yoga. And she'd had back problems. And so she'd watched me for about a year and a half when I first lived there. And she watched my pain and work and everything. And so one day she was like, you are coming with me to yoga. And so I went to the yoga studio with her. And it was fascinating because I went to yoga for my physical pain and because I needed to do something because I was miserable. But the yoga studio that I went to is a 9-hour studio, which focused specifically on yin yoga and restorative yoga. So they talked a lot about the asanas, and they talked a lot just about that yoga, that the movement part of yoga is one part, but it got me into mindset. And so I started to, after that night I went, it was in April of 2014. After that night that I went, I realized, April 2013. After I went, I realized there's something here, and I was drawn there, and it was for my physical. So I'd always been right. So up to this point, I'd been living from the outside in. I'd been living for, okay, I'm going to make this job work. I'm going to make all this work. And then I started doing yoga again for the outside in, thinking it's going to heal my ankle. But it was the studio that the classes were always dark. So what I started doing was 4 nights a week, I went to yoga starting at 7 o'clock, which meant that I had to leave work at 6 o'clock or 6:30, depending on what office I was in. And so over 8 months of starting to do yoga, it started to heal my ankle. But then there was this sanctuary where I started to hear what they were talking about. And I started to hear about the yamas and the niyamas, and I started to hear about mindfulness. And I started to slow down and just breathe. And that's what started to make the difference. And then I started to meet a few people because I had this safe place where I was welcome and where I was able to work on my ankle and just be me. And that's where it started, this revolution in my life. And so by the time I was actually terminated that day, I was fine with it. I knew it was happening. I was fine. Actually had a going away party, not with the people I worked with. Although after the woman fired me, she asked me if I wanted to go have drinks with her. And I looked and I was like, I am happy to say, hell no, never am I going with you again. So I went off to hang out with other people. And that really, the next 7 years were very low. That was the start of me realizing, so what? I lost my job. I'm not losing my life. And I started to realize that all this external stuff was crap. And that's when I started to realize I hadn't been a friend to myself, and I hadn't worked for myself with healing or anything like that. And I realized that this was a pattern through my life of how I responded to things. And so that's what I've been focusing on.
Megan, quick question I have for you before Dr. Who just...
Well, I was actually going to ask you, Dr. J, because I know you've done a lot of yoga yourself.
Yes.
Yes. So
my question is, because I remember that the first day I walked into a yoga studio. And so for people who are watching or listening and are stuck or going through something, what was it like when that woman said, you're coming with me? Were you excited? Were you still afraid? Because that was the turning point for you. Did you go kicking and screaming? Did you go jumping? Yes, let me go. Tell us about that.
Well,
you read my mind perfectly, Dr. J. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I'll be honest with you. I agreed when we were drinking champagne. And so she asked me a few times. And so one night we were drinking champagne. The roommates were drinking champagne. She was like, tomorrow you're coming with yoga. You're coming to me with yoga. And I just said yes because champagne. So, which is actually good because, I needed that. And it's also sad to say that I needed that. And so it was such a great lesson for me to realize that sometimes you just have to listen and you have to know and say when.
Can I recap the lessons then, Dr. J?
Sure, please do.
Because it really is like somebody deliberately got you drunk so that you would agree to something that they knew would, not drunk, but tipsy, to get you to agree to something, because they probably knew you were so busy and so focused that you'd probably have said no anyway. And it sounds like the three things that really helped you was, one, you were now in a place over time which you understood was safe. And there were people who loved Megan Sandwick to be Megan. They didn't care what you had, didn't have. They just thought, this is a wonderful being, and we just want to see her do well. So you surrounded yourself with, call them positive people, but just people who supported you. Because you inadvertently had something that started working on your insides to build you peace, so that you were then able to take a project eventually and look at things strategically rather than out of fear, I'm guessing. So now you had clarity in dealing with issues. And the third thing was that over that time, I'm guessing that piece also reduced the amount of pain that you were going through. I'm guessing these are, would that be correct?
Absolutely. Yes, it is absolutely correct. And the thing that was interesting is I did know that I didn't like the way I was feeling. And there would be nights at the end of the day when I would be like, I don't like this feeling today. And so I knew that there was something I didn't like. And so when I started to go to yoga, there were people around me, because there would be people in the same class. And there were these women who, they just looked so peaceful. And they just looked so, and I would hear them talk, and I know that they had stuff going on in their lives, but I would just say, like, I don't like how I'm feeling. I like that. How do I get from here to there? And then I realized that it's about responsiveness. And it's, first of all,
sorry, and I think the fourth thing is you were able to remove yourself because rather than working late amongst people who didn't want you to succeed, you were able to get time away from that office environment to be in a place where people were. So you almost were recreating some kind of balance for your mindset. Rather than having all these papers with you all the time.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add, and Megan, I'd love your thoughts on this. Many times when people practice yoga, this anger comes out. And sometimes I know people who have stopped practicing yoga because of that. They didn't like the way they felt, but they didn't want to work through it. Because when you practice yoga, so many emotions start to come out. And if it's hot yoga and you're perspiring, you're like losing all of those negative feelings. And so if you're out there and you're thinking about yoga, keep pushing through, because eventually, like Megan's saying, all this negativity, you're going to get rid of it. And every time you go back, you're going to feel better and better and better. Megan, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. And for me, I was able to focus on, because my ankle and my hip had been in such a place of pain, easy for me to say. And I also was living in a place where I would have to walk up a hill to go where I lived, and I couldn't walk up the hill. And so the great thing is that I started noticing a pretty quick physical change with yoga. And so I knew that while there were some things that I wasn't too happy about, like that I was starting to emotionally feel, I knew that the physical part was worth it. So that's where it really was the outside that started and then brought the healing inside. And that's made me realize that from now on, I need to live from the inside out. So now I am, as long as I am confident in what I'm doing, and I've become a friend of myself to be able to be honest and to be able to say, what do I want to do or how do I want to move forward? And truly and honestly, it was yoga, and it was starting that practice and starting to meditate and then grow deeper and deeper into that make the difference for me.
That's really, really cool. Did you want to share any more stuff about yoga, Dr. J? Because I know it's one of your kind of passion areas.
I started practicing yoga in Boca Raton, Florida. And I remember the first time I walked into the studio, it was what was called Bikram at the time. And it was 105 degrees. And I never stretched ever. I was a runner. I would never stretch though. So I was pretty tight. And that heat loosens everything up. And it got to the point where the gentleman who owned the studio, he had these space heaters in the front. And so I would always have to be in the front row, position between two space heaters, because then the temperature is going to be 110 degrees. And I miss that so much. I can't even tell you. But yoga, like for example, if you like someone who's a golfer, someone who's somebody walks, if you have tightness in your ankles, like what happened with Megan, if you can sit on the front of your feet are down and you're sitting, you're doing so many great things for the whole part of your foot that'll prevent you from having other injuries later. So aside from physical, also the mental, it's just freeing. That's what I have to say about that.
Free.
Freeing, it's freeing. Freeing.
Free.
Yeah.
Do a free together.
Free.
Okay, so Megan, now we're there. So you worked through that environment, and was there a reason that they gave for creating that place where they said, okay, Megan, we don't want you here anymore? Well, take us there. What happened afterwards?
You know, and it's interesting because I've never really talked about this because it involves a person, which I won't share their name, but actually I was, and to go back now again, it's the joy of perspective and the gift of perspective. So I was actually terminated because I worked with a refugee employment program, and the county had asked us to provide a culture, a group of services so that they would feel comfortable and as they were coming into the United States. And so they'd asked for women's health services for the women refugees, and because there are some women's health issues that need to be talked about. And the company did not approve the health services company that was selected, and I was blamed. So that was why I was fired. So it is kind of a gift, because for me, human rights is very important and women's issues are very important. And so for me to now look back after it pissed me off for a very long time. But over the last year, I'm able to say, okay, I'm gone. I can live with that. I'm okay with that, you know?
And do you think because of that now, because if that hadn't happened, do you think you'd still be there?
No, there would have been something else. So I was on a.
No, I mean, do you think you would have left on your own accord? Is what I'm saying.
No.
So if they kept you there and kept creating all these microaggressions or non-microaggressions, sounds like in their face, so making me hate you kind of aggressions. It sounds like you would have still been there because when they created this constructive dismissal situation with myself and eventually paid me off. You know, of course, like yourself, I had this kind of anger, but actually, I would never have been on my entrepreneurial journey. I would have still be trying to go up the corporate ladder, blah, 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 and never had the life that I've got.
I just want to reset because we're getting some questions from Twitch TV. Hello, Cup of Tea 420. This is Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog show, and we are speaking with Megan Sandwick about her journey that was painful, both emotionally and physically, and how she freed herself from she freed herself, and yoga was really a big part of her journey. So thank you. All right. Doctor Who?
So what was the question? I was so busy doing free. I'm so sorry, Dr. Jack.
No, well, I think what's important is that I don't want to say everyone, like I just led a support group last night. People are going through a lot of things. And what happens is we're so used to doing things the way that we're doing them, and we're so afraid to do something differently. And our body goes, hello, I'm over here and I'm not happy with you because you're doing, the way that you're doing it. And then when we finally find some way to free ourselves mentally and physically, we're able to take another step forward and be who we are today.
100%.
Yeah.
And for me, like you said, would I still be there? I don't know. Fortunately, I don't have to know that. But, I think for me, and what that started to teach me is that I needed to start to trust the process, and I needed to start to trust people around me as well. And so I needed to start looking at the experiences and opportunities, because once I was once I had no longer had a job, then I actually started working with another person, and we started creating job search curriculum, and we had a contract we were working on. And so that was a great tool to teach me, like, wait, I don't have to go back to the brick and mortar building again. I don't have to be a manager dealing with break room drama and potlucks and all of that stuff that broke me. But what I can do is start looking at what I like. And so then over the next, I would say 18 months, the universe truly started to put people in my life that gave me little nuggets that started the path to where I am now. Because I knew that there were things that I liked doing and I liked working with. So I started to say, okay, I like helping people find their strengths. I like productivity tools. I found these things that I knew that I liked. And then as I started talking to people, someone all of a sudden was like, hey, here's this site, Elance. And that was before Upwork was Elance. And so I just started to hear people. And once I started to open up, because what happened was when I was in that place of darkness and misery, I was super closed and I didn't tell people what was really going on. It happens. But then there was this new world, and all of a sudden it was like, what do I have to lose? So I started opening up to people, and that's when I started to realize there are these experiences and people around you, and they were the guides that helped me to find where I'm at today. And so it's been a roller coaster, and I've worked on a lot of very interesting projects with a lot of interesting people. But the good thing is I now can stand here and say, or sit here and say, I am a strategic productivity partner, and I help entrepreneurs and small business owners take control of their time by building productivity habits. And I can say that with confidence. It's fun to say that because before in my life, I've never been able to be that confident and feel that good about it. So there was this dark period that was really hard, but it made me trust and rely on myself and find the other helpers that were out there.
So well said. I just one comment. I just want to say that she is my productivity coach, and she's a 10, everyone. Okay. So I'm going to stream her banner, and I want you to contact her because she will help you time management, streamline, take all these projects that are weighing you down so that you can find your passion and your joy. I want to say hello to on Twitch, Cup of Tea 420. Thank you. Sinkley. Thank you. And Fraser 6875. Okay.
I need to get on Twitch. Megan, I was just leaving the studio just now to find a poem I've got, which is a very iconic poem. So you may have heard it already, called Footprints. I don't know if you know that poem, where you go through the dark place, and then you eventually come out the other end, and you say, look, God, where were you during that time? I had to do this on my own, and I fought myself, and actually, God was there all the time. And it sounds like in your case, the universe came back to you through the lady you lived with to help you get out of that. And that's kind of the universe working for you. And then when you left, again, the universe is working again for your benefit to say, hey, now you don't have to be working in this kind of area where people don't really like you. Now we're going to take you to a place where you're just going to blossom and have that wonderful peace. But it doesn't seem like it when you're going through it. Does that make sense?
100. That's such a good way to explain it. And that is absolutely what happened. And that's when I love that thought of being able to look back and realize that during my darkest days, I wasn't alone. And during my darkest days, when I felt that way, that there was hope, and that it was just a matter of taking a deep breath, finding it, and slowing my mind down. Because for me, my mind, 24 hours a day for an idle mind is a devil's playground. And so for me, it just became about, okay, where do I direct my thoughts? What is my outcome? How do I want to respond to this? And how do I want it to be? And realizing that I do have control in that.
You know what else I think is interesting? Oh, sorry, just that.
Go ahead, Dr. J. I love it when you give your little
that first step came from an unlikely source, that you could have mapped out your whole future, and you never would have known that woman would have been the catalyst to show you the first step on your journey.
Absolutely.
And she did it in a strategic way that would get you off. Because she could have done it. She could have done it so many other ways, right? And I want to ask you to go a bit further than that, because this is just me guessing and rapping as a rapping with Dr. J. Because you went through that dark side, I'm guessing that it's allowed you to understand how to make people even more productive. And if you hadn't gone through that, perhaps you wouldn't learn with confidence. No, this will get you out of that. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Yes, because almost, you know how a lifeguard is the one that's standing and kind of has the view of everything. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I'm a lifeguard, but what I am saying is I do have a different view. It gave me a different view of life, and it gave me a different view of motivation, and it gave me a different view of what people grab their attachment to keep what they've got. And so that helps me to realize, like, okay, what is this that we need to do? Where are you right now? And to help to bring a different perspective, and sometimes to ask the questions, and sometimes, but it has absolutely, I would not be doing as well. You know, I wouldn't be as good as what I'm doing now had I not been through that, which is always that bittersweet lesson, right?
Well, I know it is bittersweet. I more and more these days, I get, even when people have betrayed me, you know, I think it's the universe deliberately having these horrible people that you've trusted to get you to go somewhere where you probably wouldn't go, if you see what I mean. Like I don't think if you knew what was going to happen in that job, you would have ever taken it on board. You'd say, no, I'll find another contract. But because you didn't know, it caused you to learn so many great productivity tips to deal with these situations that you became the number one productivity person in this field. I'm guessing. And then once you've got that knowledge, that the universe said, well, it's time to get you out. Let's see how we can do it. Oh, I know. We'll create this because it sounds like that was a constructive dismissal point. They're just thinking, oh, okay, it's time for her to go. Let's find a reason. Mm-hmm. And it was just time. Oh, I think Megan's got the point now. Let's get her out and get her into another world where we're now going to give her, you know, like what do they say in the Bible? 7 years of famine and 7 years of abundance to get you into that abundant space now.
Think about how many times you might have heard, maybe it's happened here, obviously, but how many times you hear people saying, I can't believe they let me go from that job, or I can't believe I didn't get that promotion, or I can't believe I didn't get the bonus. And when you look at it now, you know, later, you look back, you go, that was the catalyst for me to do what I did to leave. And you go kicking and screaming, but it's like your carriage has arrived, get in.
Yes, so true. Well, and it's interesting with the pandemic over the last year, because, you know, I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have been a manager in that physical office and had to deal with all of those reindeer games over the last year, like that would have broke me. You know, now I get to do what I want, and I get to focus on the projects that I'm on my best. When I was a deputy director, I did 36 reports a month. You know, I was in meetings all day, every day. I no longer was doing what was the joy of the job, which was working with participants and with employees. And so now I'm not a deputy director anymore, and I'm working with my clients, and I get to be creative, and the reports are the reports I create. And so, you know, I have a very strict rule about the types of reports that we create for my company, and they have to be super important and about money, because it's just one of those things where I realize, like, I want to spend my time in my sweet spot, and I get to do that now because I'm my own boss.
Yay! She's so darn good. Yes. Woo, I highly recommend Megan Sandwick.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. I appreciate that. That means a lot. It really does. Your support. And that's the other thing that has been great about that I've learned, is that when you're working in brick and mortar, it's a great opportunity and there are people around you. But when I went to the remote world, I get to work with people and talk to people and grow from people all around the world. And so it's given me a true understanding of things that I like and my passions. And I get to meet people like you, Dr. Jacalyn, and like you, Dr. Who. You know, it's a gift. And I realize that this is what makes me happy. Might not be for everybody, but that's okay, because this is my life and that's all that matters. Yeah,
I like it. Well said.
Dr. J, I've got about 10 minutes left. And are there any more adverts that from our wonderful sponsors that we need to do?
I didn't run them because I didn't want to interrupt the conversation. So I will take us to break right now and run 2 quick ads. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thanks for asking, Ben.
Thank you, Dr. J.
It's what we do together that counts. The BIC Alliance story.
a true story about faith over adversity, perseverance, and entrepreneurship. Read Earl's story and how he became an entrepreneur. Available on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible.com. For more information, contact Earl Hurd at earlhurd@bicalliance.com or call 1-800-460-4242.
The world of healthcare is benefiting us in many ways, but the risk of becoming a victim to an airborne infection is increasing at a fast pace too. There are threats from viruses, allergic pollen, and chemicals which cause you loss of health, income, business, mental health, family and friends. All are at stake. One solution to this threat are the BV Air Sanitation Placide-based systems. When you call our team on 0208 104 3253, you find out about the amazing protection available. Protection that uses certified Battlefield, tested, standard and customized air disinfection systems for your personal and business use. Each system uses a filterless technology known as Placide, which attacks all airborne particles with microlighting to destroy and eliminate viruses and other harmful particles in your office, transport and home. You also benefit from extra bonuses such as low running and maintenance costs, no regular filter and part changes. You get to work with our trained experts and professional staff and be made aware of the latest in airborne protection and disinfection strategy. Keep yourself healthy by working with our trained experts and Placide virus killing systems, which keep you safe from airborne viruses. BV Air Sanitation Limited. We save lives, save businesses, and prevent infection. Schedule your free consultancy call and virus protection checklist. Call 0208 104 3253 or connect to us on www.bvbuster.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned into.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Guess back. Yay! What show is this, Ben?
The Underdog Show.
And who's our underdog today?
Megan Sandwick.
But
Is
she's
it
not
Sandwick?
an
Am I pronouncing your
Sandwick.
surname? Sandwick,
Yes.
great, yes.
She's not an underdog anymore, though. Now she
No.
sets boundaries and she calls her own shots. I love it.
Yeah, and has her own clients. So, Megan, in this last part of the episode, I wonder if you could just share, now, if you were to go back through that scenario, what you would be advising yourself and actually all the audiences, maybe just 3 or 4 tips to get through. And then afterwards, I'd like to really focus on you know, the kinds of productivity tips you can give to people if they connected with you. Is that fine?
Absolutely, definitely. So I
Brilliant.
think a few of the things that I would tell myself or tell anyone else in that situation is anytime you feel that you have to cling on to something or stay attached to something so much, like the job, like that fear factor, you know, scenario where my fear was if I lost this job, it would be the worst thing in the world. I think anytime if you start to recognize that feeling, then you need to stop and you need to pause for a minute and you need to look at that and ask yourself and look at why and what is going around that. And so I think that's one of the first things is to really stop and ask yourself if you're, and it probably starts back to if you identify you don't like a feeling, if you identify that there are days after days after days that you don't like a feeling or don't like how things are going, then start to ask yourself why. And then if you start to realize, you know, like for myself, if I would go back and say like, why am I so fearful of getting fired? It's terrible, right? It shouldn't happen, but it does. And it's not the end of the world. Death is tragic. Everything else will get over. And so I think for me, just to remember, ask yourself, figure out, how do I feel right now? Do I like it? Do I not? Am I attached to something in a negative and an unhealthy way? And do I have this fear that I need to let go of? And then third thing, who are you being a friend to? Are you spending more time and effort on the outside world or your world? And I know that it's cliche to say this, but it's so true. If you're not a friend to yourself, you cannot be a friend to somebody else. And so in that case, you have to take care of yourself. So I think those would be lessons. Are those kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, so the first thing is look at why you're afraid. Just think about it and think like what's the worst possible thing that can happen, and really analyze internally.
I have something to say on that. If
yeah,
it's okay.
sure. Yeah,
So,
please.
so to me, that means fear of change. And I think we need to figure out, why is it we're afraid to change? Is it because we're afraid we're going to fail? Is it because maybe we're going to have to make an effort that we don't feel like putting out because we're so used to being set in our ways and doing what we're doing? What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
For me, I can say that, oh, sorry.
Yeah, so fear of that kind of change, I think is something you should look at. Yeah, and fear of like, what am I going to do if I get fired? Yeah, why am I afraid of this? Because I can get another job, and I'm always advising people to quit before you get fired. Right? No,
but also, what if you quit and you start a new business and you fail? That's a big question on people's minds, right? People who want to leave their corporate world and start, what if I can't make it? Megan?
Well, and that's why I would say trust in the process. And I think for me, that's something that I didn't trust in the process when I was in corporate America. So I was interfering with the process. Well, I eventually have trusted in the process and it got rid of me. So, I mean, in that sense, I trust in the process. But I think for me, trusting in the process, when I went from corporate America to the remote world, it was very important to trust in the process, because project-based work is very different than a job employment contract, if you will. And so for me, I had to learn that there were going to be projects that weren't going to go well. I was not going to do well on every project. But for me, it's always, okay, how do I respond to it? So that project didn't go well with that client. Let's look at why. Let's learn from it. And let's say, okay, what can we change? It's all about taking control and realizing that I have the ability to make the changes and to pivot. I just need to believe in myself, have the strength, and prepare myself with the resources and make sure that I have, for me, at the beginning, the hardest thing was I wanted to do something remote, but I just didn't know what. And it took me probably 2 years or so to work in different things to figure out what my passion and what my way was.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Something I just have it's just another quick comment, which is, we stay stuck for so long, right? Literally for years doing the same thing over and over again. And then we think about doing something else and we want it to work right away. I want to leave this job and I want to start this business and I want to make the same money I was making over there. And I want this. No, it doesn't work that way. You gotta trust the process, enjoy the journey. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
So that was the second one. Enjoy the journey, trust the process. And the third one is to be a friend of yourself, because when you're your friend, you can be a friend to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Have I summarized okay?
You did a great job. Absolutely.
Ding, 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 ding.
All right. So shall we let Megan tell our audience all the great things that she can do for them as a result of what she's gone through?
Absolutely. Spotlighting you now.
So as I mentioned, I am a strategic productivity partner. And so what I do is I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners to say, what are your productivity habits right now? What are the tools that you use? What are the processes that you use? And what are your habits? And so then we'll look at that, and I'll start with very basic, like what is your daily process? What are all the emails, messages, chats, things that you need to check during each day? Do you have a process that you do that once a day? And we start there. And then we start to look at what are your tools and what is your calendar. And the most powerful thing that I do with clients is I start to look at, let's look at your tasks and let's look at your schedule and what you've got planned. Because a lot of times the challenges that we have, if we're an entrepreneur or a small business owner, then we're already overachievers, right? We already know that we have high expectations. And so adjusting expectations is the most powerful thing that I can do with entrepreneurs and with small business owners. So as a strategic productivity partner, I look at the strategic habits that you're building, but also at the expectations, and then look at that on an ongoing basis.
And Megan, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
My website is downwithspp.com, and you can email me at megan@downwithspp.com.
And just for folks who are in the radio, it's down, DOWN with WITH, S is in Sam, P is in Paul, P is in Paul.com.
Yes, that is it.
Right, Dr. J, this is a question for you.
Yes.
Name 3 benefits, right? 3 benefits of working with Megan that you've had.
Megan has helped me streamline so many processes. We identified one yesterday, another one to put into this. But so she's helped me come up with processes to save time. She's also helped me come up with processes that were completely dysfunctional, and she came up with a solution to them. And she's also introduced me to all kinds of new technology platforms I had no idea about to help streamline my work. She's basically said to me, you can't do 14 shows and do the work of 7 or 8 other people handling all the details because you will be burned out. Bad.
Sorry, Megan, that's exactly what I said to Dr. J. I said my. And this is so actually Megan's helped you in a number of areas. One, she's reduced the likelihood of you being burnt. Audience, it doesn't matter what we give to remove from Dr. J. She'll just think, oh, I've got more time. Megan's helped me be more efficient. I'm going to take 5,000 more things to do.
Wait, there's another show. There's another show.
No, exactly. I'm saying, how do they link? So that's how I'm saying to Dr. J. So she's, which by the way is an amazing thing to a gift to prevent people from being burnt out. The second is she's saved you in terms of making your processes more efficient. So that allows you to understand and get your business running better. And the third thing is she saved you time. And then what do they say? Time is
money.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So that's a great testimonial for Megan.
Thank you.
Sure is.
When you think about it, time is the one commodity that we all have as uniform. There's only 24 hours in a day. There's no Botox or anything that can change that. We all have the same amount of time in a day. And so it's what we do with it that's important.
I like the Botox reference because Botox paralyzes your muscles, right? So there's nothing to stop us from wasting our time except ourselves, coming up with more effective processes. And also something else, learning to say no, because everybody wants something from you, and you only have so much time to give to yourself and the people you care about.
It's so true. When I was the editor of a magazine, everybody wanted me. When I was doing a podcast on security, I had all the security people, chasing me for things. So yes, just being aware of that, very, very important.
And that's where being a friend to yourself is important. That's where being a friend to yourself helps you to be able to say no, because you realize that, well, I get that they need this right now. I don't. And it's about me. So how can we adjust what they need to meet their expectations?
That reminds me, my dad used to say, like, somebody would call on the phone and I'd say, all right, we're having a conversation, Dad. I have to get this phone call. And he said, no, you don't. That person's calling you because this is a convenient time for them, but it's not convenient for you because you're having a conversation with me. Like, oh, that's true. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I constantly telling my kids, create wiggle room. Wiggle room. Don't have your schedule so tight. It's kind of like you don't have time to relax and for other people. So with that, any last tips for our audience, Dr. J and Megan?
I will give one very specific last tip in relation to the wiggle room. And what I always say is each day you need to find out how much workable hours you have, how much project time, how much time you can spend on something. So you find out the hours, you look at your calendar. Okay, I've got 5 hours of meetings, so I know I have 3 hours of focused project time. Never schedule 3 hours, right? Because you need wiggle time and things are always going to take longer. So one of the secrets is to find out what's your formula. For me, I can schedule, if I've got a 3-hour block, I can schedule about 50% or about an hour and a half. And so it's different for everybody. And I help my clients find what that is and we adjust it. But it's so important and powerful to find out how much time do I have and then not schedule every minute of it, because you need yourself some space and a break.
Amen. I like that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here, Megan.
Thank you both.
Yes,
So
thank
good.
you. Wow, so this is another great Wrapping with Dr. J episode. And we've got wonderful guest star Megan Sandwick. I'd love to give her a little applause.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And I know,
appreciate
Dr. J, we always want to talk for another hour, but I have to go.
I know. No, I understand. I've got another show also. So Megan, we'll say goodbye to you. Thank you, my friend. Great
Thank
job being on the
you.
show.
Absolutely. So nice to see you both. And everybody, become your own friend. That is the best way to be productive, is to be friendly with yourself.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye, Megan. Doctor Who, just a quick thing for you from Fraser. I don't know if he's serious or not, but he wants to know if you want to have dinner so everybody can know where you guys will be.
Yeah, great. Well, I look forward to seeing you at my door, Fraser. Absolutely. Fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doctor Who. Thank you for being here with a great show. And I appreciate everything that you do to help us get the message about the underdog out to the masses.
Thank you, Dr. Jen, and for all these amazing shows you're producing for everyone, which inspire and entertain and educate people. Really, really fantastic. Guys, please do connect with Dr. J in some way. Please comment on her shows, because I know she's working very, very hard to give you great information to help you in your lives.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate that. All right, you have a good dinner with Fraser, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry. Oh, hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for your loyalty. This was our second show today, and we've got 3 more. Yes, it's Wednesday with 5 shows. We also have 5 shows on Friday. Let me share with you what's coming up. So we have the Business Talk Show with my co-host, Mr. Alcini, and our guest, Regina Longo. I love Regina. Talk about yoga, talk about meditation, transformation, empowerment. Regina exemplifies all of those things. Then this afternoon on A Better You, lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors, we have Hyatt Ives. He is a Toastmaster for decades, and he is going to come on our program and educate us today. I'm looking forward to that. And then this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we have In the Name of Love with co-host Kimmy Seltzer. And our guest is John Antonio. And he's got quite a story, which I think is you're going to find fascinating. So that program is all about love, self-care, loving the environment, loving the planet, loving your community, and just being filled with positive energy and vibes. So thank you again for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you at 2 p.m. Eastern Time right here for the business show, and 4 o'clock for A Better You Eastern Time, and 7 p.m. Eastern Time for In the Name of Love. That's all for today, folks. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.